Hello, and welcome to God Calling Vocation Vibes. This is a podcast at the service of those who are seeking their path in life, who are discerning a life of meaning, purpose, and joy. My name is Sister Carolyn. I'm from the Little Sisters of the Poor. And did you know that at the Jubilee for Consecrated Life in Rome, 16,000 consecrated persons signed up to participate, but actually many, many more did participate. And we are blessed today to have a guest who was one of the pilgrims, and not only one of the pilgrims, but one of the people who helped to make it happen. And I would like to have her introduce herself. Sister?
Good day. I'm Sister Rosemary, a member of the Little Sisters of the Poor community in Rome. I've been living in this community since 2018, and along with the other members of the community, I'm happy to serve our residents through our development office, very often sharing with benefactors or spreading the good news of care of the elderly, the importance of the elderly. In addition to living my community life as a little sister, I am privileged to be able to assist the church and work in the dicastery for consecrated life. It's called the dicastery for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. We're about 40, many religious and a few lay people, who together have worked for the last 3 years on moving forward on the theme for our Jubilee, Jubilee of Hope on the path of peace.
You for all the prayer and effort you put into it, Sister. It was truly amazing. And those of us around the world who were not able to be present were able to watch, through the media and join in that way. But we're so blessed to have you who were there in person and really were a part of it since its inception. Sister, before we dive into our topic, there's one thing that our viewers and listeners always love, and that is to hear a person's vocation story. Would you kindly give us your vocation story in a nutshell?
Sure, happy to do that. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I first heard the Little Sisters at a church collection and was very interested. I was very young. I was only 10. And a couple of years after, I had the chance to visit the local home and see the sisters in action and the residents. And I was able to begin volunteering for a number of years. After a while, the Lord touched my heart and said maybe that was what I was being called to. So I joined the community, and I've been a little sister of the poor for over 45 years and very happy therein.
Amazing that he touched your heart when you were 10 years old, but God uses all different experiences to help plant the seeds of our vocation. So thank you for sharing that with us. So, Sister, the Jubilee itself, the experience of the Jubilee, what was it in that experience that most moved your heart that we could share with young men and women who are discerning? What were those particular things that moved your heart?
Well, I have to say, Rome is always full of religious men and women because of studies and commitment and leadership roles. But in this time, preparing for the Jubilee, especially a couple of weeks before, the influx of all different types of members of consecrated life was very moving because you would see a number of people, some in habits, some in not habits, some in traditional clothing, but all with the one goal to join together and celebrate the call. The vigil, the first evening in St. Peter's Basilica, brought together a full house. It was amazing. It was standing room only. And I was privileged to be with a group of my sisters. We were about 16, and we were in the middle of the basilica. And just to look around and see all the different ages, cultures, languages, dress, all with the same goal, having been called and being called each day and responding to God's call with His grace. We had witnesses, we had music. It was a very moving moment altogether.
I'm sure that there were postulants, novices, and discerners in the crowd that had come with different communities, and how moved they must have been by what they saw. Because, there's a great hesitancy on the part of young people today to embark on a commitment, and yet they see all of these thousands and thousands of men and women in consecrated life who are fulfilling joyfully their commitment. So that's something that I think is very powerful. And sister, what else would you say has inspired you in your preparation work and then actually being present at the Jubilee activities? Any particular words of our Holy Father or interactions with other religious that inspired you particularly?
Well, one of the things when you speak of young people and discernment, during our events, we had different moments of live dance, choreographed. We had music. We had choruses sing. And one of them was a large group, oh, maybe 50 or so, of young religious in formation, both male and female, who sang. And one of the comments made to the General Assembly was, "This is surely a sign of hope, this international group of young people, where they are now and for the future of our life in the church." The Holy Father spoke at the audience on Thursday late morning. Everyone was wishing to see him and hear him speak. He gave a very moving discourse, which I'm sure, Sister Carolyn, you'll leave some links afterwards to the website for Consecrated Life and places where our documentation can be downloaded, and the talks of Pope Leo, his homily at the Mass, and then his talk, encouraging us to move forward in hope on the path of peace, which is so important. Members of the dicastery were privileged to be in the front of some of these events, not only because of working in the dicastery, but also in case there was a need, people knew where to find us. At the end of let me step back. For Mass, prior to the beginning of Mass, he was able to shake the hands of a small group of very special people. There were the superiors from the dicastery and other people who play an important role in consecrated life. All had the opportunity to thank him for his presence and to wish him well. The day of the audience, at the end of the audience, he, as he does on his Wednesday audiences, walked the first row in the front of the barriers and shook hands with as many people as he could. Our constitutions as little sisters, they speak of our role to sustain and support the Holy Father, as our foundress, St. John Jugan, encourages us. And each one who was in the front as the opportunity permitted itself, was able to either reach out to him or shake his hand. And I was very touched because I was in a position to shake his hand very briefly, but to also look him in the eye, US to US, Chicago, New York, and say, thank you for your witness. And that was enough. No other words needed to pass. It was understood. And I suppose I'll hold on to that moment above all the others to know that the Lord He has called Pope Leo, He has called those of us who have responded in consecrated life, and He will not fail us. The Lord will continue to assist us as we try to serve Him and serve the holy people of God.
An exhilarating moment that must have been when you shook his hand. Our Holy Father, given to us by God to lead us. And what a blessing it is for all of us that our Holy Father happens to be a religious, as was Pope Francis. But our present Holy Father, of course, is an Augustinian, and I know his living of his religious life is very important to him. He rejoins his brothers. He's very, very busy. Being a father to the church all over the world, but he always makes time for his community, and you can see how his religious life is so very important to him. And he often quotes St. Augustine, even in the Jubilee celebrations. He talked about how St. Augustine had that constant concern for eternity from the time of his conversion. He saw things more in perspective and always had his eye on eternal life. So there you were in Rome with these thousands and thousands of consecrated men and women around you and before you, and all of them living in the present world, joyful, but with their eye on eternity. And I think that's something that really speaks to today's young people. What's your thought on that?
Well, one of the things Pope Leo is very strong on is the Augustinian philosophy on community, on fraternal life. And so that we can all be collaborators and work together to build a true, a just, a feasible society, so that the vulnerable, the poor are cared for, that there are not these divisions. The day of his audience with us was the day of the publication of Dilexit Te, and that is his apostolic exhortation on the poor, and I have loved you. So we know that the love of God, and we know we are called to affirm that with all whom we encounter.
And I think that must resonate with the hearts of discerners too, because there's a great desire among today's young people, a very laudable desire to reach out to the poor, a cognizance of humanity at large, and reaching out to our brothers and sisters around the world in need. And so, how beautifully this community, this Augustinian view of community, predisposes to synodality, to walking together in the church, and to walking together as a human community so that no one is left out, that we can reach out to everyone with God's love. This is God Calling Vocation Vibes. It is a podcast of the Little Sisters of the Poor in the service of those who are discerning a life of meaning, purpose, and joy, seeking God's plan for their lives. I'm Sister Carolyn, and I have Sister Rosemary with me. Sister Rosemary is joining us from Rome. Sister Rosemary, what else might you like to share from your experience in planning and in living out the Jubilee?
One of the things that strikes me very much during our preparations for the Jubilee was the involvement of those members of religious institutes, contemplatives, a group known as members of secular institutes, consecrated virgins, those members of new forms of consecrated life, members of a group known as Societies of Apostolic Life, and there were hermits. In fact, the other day I noticed in the Vatican media, the hermits from Italy had a meeting with Pope Leo. And I believe all of these diverse groups with the one goal, Jesus Christ, the holy people of God, on our path of peace, filled with hope. So for discerners, there's many paths, and God calls in many different ways. And for those who desire to assist young people as they discern, so important to learn about the different ways to be consecrated. God calls each one, and each one is special. So I encourage you just to dive in and look into what it means to be a member of consecrated life.
There's such an amazing variety of charisms, as you say. And I think one of the things that young people today treasure is their freedom. And they are hesitant to respond to a call from God because they want to hold on to their freedom. We all do as human beings. But once one makes a commitment to obedience to Jesus Christ, who is obedient to the will of his Father, how awesome is that? And what great freedom you feel. And so to freely discern your vocation, freely say yes to a call that comes to you from God, and freely choose from among those various charisms to see where your gifts from God fit with the needs of the world and resonate with the charism of this particular community is totally possible. And so I'm sure that what you experience has helped you to deepen that commitment, sister. And thank you for sharing that with us. It's a life full of possibility. I also heard Pope Leo say to the religious during this Jubilee celebration how much the church needs consecrated men and women to carry forward and foster God's great plan of peace and salvation. Pope Leo talks a lot about peace, and he and the previous popes in recent times have reiterated how the church truly needs consecrated religious, but it's not just the works of our hands. Consecrated men and women fulfill amazing works to meet the needs of humanity, but it's over and above the works of our hands, which are very important, but the witness that we give, this witness that our world is longing for, that there can be joy, there can be peace, there can be freedom, there can be community. Sister, what else would you like to share from what you observed during the Jubilee experience?
As you were talking, I couldn't help but think of our monastic brothers and sisters, those under papal cloister, whose lives are so important. You can think of St. Teresa, the Child Jesus, patroness of missions, never left her cloister. There are cloistered men and women interceding for peace all over the world. Their witness is so valuable. There are cloistered women in the Vatican, at a monastery in the Vatican, sisters from Argentina that pray all the time for the church, because that goes hand in hand with those in active ministries, active charisms. At the dicastery, our prefect, the first woman prefect in a dicastery, is a Comboni missionary sister, and she spent 2 years in Mozambique. So she brings a quality, a new quality in service to the church as our Holy Father Pope Leo does with his many, many years in Peru. The variety of charisms, the way they are lived out, is just a wonderful gift for the church, a mosaic.
Yes, and also that sense of community. So even the monastic, the cloistered, religious or consecrated men and women experience community, and I think that's something that well, obviously you saw very much in the experience of the Jubilee, but young people do desire community. They're very, as many of us are, they're very in touch with the universal church and with the world through the media and through our cell phones and various devices. And in some senses, those can alienate us and make us feel more lonely for God. And then we discover God and his presence and his love in other people. And so I would think an experience like that Jubilee of all those consecrated people together must be very exciting for young people who are able to either experience it personally or witness it, because it shows that consecrated life truly does resonate with the deepest desires of the human heart, and in particular with a deep desire of our young people who have gotten so separated sometimes from community by technology, which is good and can be used for wonderful purposes, but can make us lonely for God. And so, how beautiful that all these consecrated religious men and women, consecrated people, have found God in these awesome vocations and experienced that joy.
So, Carolyn, one of the things, a different point that I think might interest listeners is during the last 2 days, it was centered on formation, on the formation of all those participating. As many have heard with the Synod on synodality, there was a thing called conversations in the Spirit. And we were able to spend time instructing all of the participants how to do that and how to make that part of their life. And then also there were other sections on formation, just an aspect that I hadn't covered. So thank you.
Yes, and that actually has become a part of our life as little sisters of the poor, these conversations in the spirit, this communion on a deeper level, which enables us to live more according to eternal values and be cognizant of those around us, and to live in a greater spirit of vibrant faith. Sister, one of the things that young people discerning today often bring to us who are in vocation ministry is that they're so afraid of failure. And I can't help but think that the vision of all these thousands and thousands of consecrated people who have their weaknesses and their deficiencies, just like you and I and everybody else, with the grace of God, have been able to persevere, to respond and to persevere in their vocation. And sure, we're not perfect, nobody's perfect, but that doesn't mean we failed. And even sometimes people who are discerning their vocation may enter formation and then discern that that is not their vocation. But how awesome that it has helped to clarify what their vocation is, because we need all the different vocations in the church. And so, what is your thought about that fear of failure, but the encouragement that the Jubilee experience offers to our young people?
What about challenges and opportunities? It's a challenge. It's a letting go, reaching out to say yes with fear, but with joy. And this is a Jubilee of Hope. So in discernment, hopefully discerners are well accompanied, have someone to guide or to go back and forth and to grow and to discover. And then it's true, lifetime commitments, not just for consecrated life, but we can look at marriage and family. which is not exempt from problems and challenges. But to never try is also unfortunate. Some will try and say, well, I'll give it a shot. Doesn't work out in a year. Well, that's a possibility. And others will say, no, I really feel God calling me, and I accept the unknown, and I will strive to enter into God's plan with the help of others. But there's also this sense in some cultures that it's a loss of faith to join a certain form of life and then decide or understand that you're not called to it. And some young people grapple with that, which is very difficult. We have to take into consideration the multifaceted interculturality of our world and where different people come from. But I strongly urge anyone who is thinking of a life of consecration to explore and develop over time prior to seeing if a lifetime commitment is possible. If it is, blessed be God. And if it's not, it will be part of the pathway to something else. And it's a wonderful deepening, and it will help in all walks of life.
Well said, sister. And so, sister and I would both encourage you, if you are discerning your vocation, to take the next step, to contact a vocation director or to engage in experience with consecrated men or women and see what their spirituality and charism are like, how they are in the daily living out of that charism, and how you might be able to participate with them in the charism to see if it feels like a good fit for you. And of course, it's not all intellectual. That part is important, but also the nudges that God puts in your heart. So do get good spiritual direction and take that next step to open your heart to it. So many people remain paralyzed in fear and hesitation, and our life is such a wonderful gift. We don't want to let that happen. So Sister and I want to thank all of you who are watching or listening to this podcast episode. We hope that it is helping you in your vocation, or if you're a member of the broader faith community who desires to support and encourage vocations, thank you for your interest. Please share this podcast episode with others who are supporting vocation ministry, young people who are discerning their vocation. And if you would kindly like and share and follow the podcast, that will help it be brought before the eyes and ears of more young men and women so that they may find the happiness to which they are called. In the meantime, sister and I promise you our prayers that you may find great joy in the vocation to which God has called you.
All the best. Continue the Jubilee of Hope on the path of peace.
Amen.